evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Gina Leslie, and I'm the treasurer on the Board of Trustees. I'm presiding over the meeting tonight in place of President David Campbell, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, but he does send his regrets and regards. I'm pleased to call the 56th annual meeting of the Historic Columbia to order. Special thanks tonight go to our annual meeting sponsor, the Braddock Group of J.D. Montgomery Scott, LLC, and I'd like to ask David Palkovich to come forward and offer this evening's welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Palkovich. I'd like to welcome you to the annual meeting. I'm reading a book called Starting With Why by a guy named Simon Sinek. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but the whole premise of the book is that people care a lot more about why you do what you do as opposed to what you actually do. So I figured I'd tell you why I'm here, why we're involved, and it probably is similar to why all of y'all are here this evening. We fundamentally believe that we have a responsibility to make the community better when we leave it than when we arrived here. And I think the most powerful way to do that is get involved with nonprofits, because nonprofits continue a legacy well after you're done contributing, and whether it's time or resources. And that strikes a special chord with me, because if you think about some of the things Historic Columbia has done over the last year, everything from what they've done with the gardens to the projects that have gone on between Richland County Library and the Children's Theater, you think about the impact you make on the community. And that got me thinking, what if we impacted a child's life at the Children's Theater or at the library who got so involved with Columbia and got excited about Columbia that they didn't want to leave after they went to college, and they stayed here and maybe one day got married at right where we're sitting today. You think about that impact, and you think about why that's important, and I thought I'd talk about that as opposed to what we do and what Historic Columbia is, because y'all all know that. So I want to thank you guys for being a part of Historic Columbia. Thank you for your time, thank you for your resources, and welcome to the meeting.
And thanks to the Braddock Group for your great support. We really appreciate it. In addition to our wonderful membership, we're joined tonight by several elected officials whose past, current, and future support is key to our organizational success. Whether advocating for funds for the historic buildings, landscapes, and public programs, working with us to secure the preservation of our community's built assets, or ensuring that our voice is at the table when needed, these folks are dedicated to serving Columbia and Richland County. And they know that a healthy Historic Columbia is good for this community. Attending tonight, I already see County Councilman Jim Manning and Greg Pierce. I don't know, Seth Rose is here. Thank you, Seth. And also, I don't know if Kirkman Finley is here. He was supposed to be here. And Howard Duvall. Not sure. I would please join me in thanking them for their service and support.
This is such a wonderful, wonderful asset to our community. And I just want to encourage everybody that you need to be in contact with your county council members and make sure that they know what you think they know. And to let them know that you know what you know. Because there's a whole lot of that not going on. Additionally, we're going to be losing a colleague, Mr. Rose, who's running for the House. Now, why that's important to you is that means there's going to be a county council seat. And the best way for you to advocate for your organization is not to the person that gets elected, but to be the person elected. So you might just want to consider that, and any other seat that might become available, it's something that I think you ought to consider. Now, if you're not willing to do that, then I think you ought to look very long and hard at the people who do sign up, and when they have little events, go out and talk to them about what is important to you as board members and sustaining members, volunteers, the folks that you are in the room. The political process is just so very, very important. And there are a lot of ways for you to be involved. And I just very much encourage you to get involved, be involved early on in the process. Don't wait till the people get elected. Elect the right people, or you be the right people to get elected, so that a great asset like this to Richland County and the county seat, which y'all know is Columbia, I just think of it as the county seat when I look at it on the map. But do think about how you can be engaged and how you can make an impact with that regard. Mr. Rose, I don't know if they invited you to say anything, but I'll certainly be happy to yield one of my minutes to you. Come on up here and say a few words.
And I wanted to come by, not just as a candidate, but as someone that has supported this organization for years. You probably are very well versed in some of the battles we've had over Historic Columbia County Council. And I see the value in this organization, what you do for our community, and I have advocated as such and voted as such on county council. I think the world of Robin Waits and the Historic Columbia Foundation. And if I'm lucky enough to serve in the General Assembly, I'm running for House District 72, which has been occupied by James Smith, who's obviously running for governor. But if I have the honor and the privilege to do that, I will remain an advocate of Historic Columbia. I promise you that. So if I can ever be of assistance, don't hesitate to let me know. And I see a lot of friendly faces, a lot of people I know. My last name is Rose. I hope Rose like the flower. But you can contact me anytime. And so, Mr. Manning, thank you for giving me one of your minutes. So, thank you so much.
All your staff are absolutely professional. Anything that we need, when we contact them, they get us what we need to support you. So to you and your staff, thank you for the great work that you do here. Thank you.
Hey, Howard, I see we've been joined by Howard Duvall from City Council. Would you like to say anything?
Well, I can just say from here, I just wanted to say hello and say how much we appreciate what Robin and the crew of Historic Columbia does for our historic areas of the city and other areas too that have history that need to be recognized. I know Seth and I got 2 more events to go to tonight over on the other side of the town, so I can't stay with you and party, but we do want to say hello and thank you for doing what you do for the city of Columbia.
Thank you. We're going to skip Harold for the moment. Our other group is the Historic Columbia Advisory Council, who is chaired by Jenna Stevens. Unfortunately, Jenna was traveling and is not here yet, but Stuart Moore is going to fill in and give a report for the Advisory Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. My name is Stuart Moore. I'm the past chair of the Advisory Council, and I'm glad to be with all of you this evening. As Gina mentioned, Jenna Stevens is our current chair of the Advisory Council. She had a late conflict and regrets not being here. Established in 2004, the Historic Columbia Advisory Council is comprised of a diverse group of individuals who help raise awareness and support for Historic Columbia. There have been several changes to the Advisory Council over the past year, as this group has been more focused on the needs of the organization and engaged at a higher level in the decision-making of the organization. Just over the past year, our group has had the opportunity to meet with several influential members of our community. For example, back in January, we met with the architect and developer who oversees the bakery at the Bull Street project. Then later in the spring, we had the opportunity to meet with individuals at the Hampton Preston site who are obviously overseeing the rehab of that site. And if you haven't had an opportunity, I would encourage all of you to at least peer over the wall to see the profound changes that are in the process of taking shape on the gardens at this Hampton Preston site. Just in August, we had the opportunity to meet with the dean of the USC Law School, as well as the architectural team that are overseeing the new law school that's, of course, on Gervais Street and Senate. And also, we had the chance, our group, to meet just a few weeks ago and spend a Saturday morning for several hours doing some sweat equity for Historic Columbia, and we spent several hours working on the grounds of the Siebel's house, which is of course nearby. Tonight I'm pleased to introduce all of you to 3 new members of the Advisory Council who have joined us this year. If you could please stand. Ann Cameron is one of our new members. Thank you, Ann. Betsy McDonald is supposed to be here a little late, so she may not be here quite yet, but she's a new member of our Advisory Council. And Megan Plott is unable to be here, but she's our 3rd new member of the Advisory Council from this year. If there are any other members of the Advisory Council, I would ask that you please stand so you could be recognized. All that you do. Thank you. Have a good evening.
As I noted earlier, the Board of Trustees serve as the governing body for Historic Columbia. We have several committee chairs who's going to share their progress reports tonight. The first committee is the Strategic Planning Committee, and Mark Jones chairs that committee. Unfortunately, Mark is not here tonight, and so I will be filling in for Mark. We're excited, and I will be reading his report, sorry. We're excited about what the Strategic Planning Committee and Board has accomplished over the last year. By wrapping up the last leg of a 3-year strategic plan and working through the development of a new guiding document, Historic Columbia continues to make strides in a thoughtful and deliberate manner. The board and staff focused on 3 main areas: doing fewer things better, enhancing the visitor experience, and improving how Historic Columbia tells its story. We achieved some success, which Robin will talk about in a few minutes. We've learned a lot about ourselves, and we look forward to carrying these objectives into the 2017-2020 strategic plan. Building on this momentum, the 2020 plan outlines the following goals: be the known leader in the stewardship of historic sites in Columbia and Richland County. Engage and inspire the community through dynamic and inclusive public programs. With the support of key stakeholders, have the organizational capacity to fulfill the mission of Historic Columbia. As a board member, I'm encouraged by the way Historic Columbia has become an active agent in improving the quality of life for residents and visitors to our community, and look forward to supporting the board, the staff, and our membership as we take the next steps towards increased engagement and impact. Next, Isa Mendel, as chair of the Development Committee, will give her report.
Good evening. As was said, my name is Isa Mandel. I am the head of the Development Committee for the Board of Trustees for Historic Columbia. I told Robin I was going to wing it, and she said, I wrote you notes. I'm going to respect Robin and read what she wrote with a little bit of winging it here and there. So I'll just begin by saying that one of the reasons that I'm part of Historic Columbia is I grew up in the city. I love the city. I went away for undergrad, I went away for grad school, came back, became very involved, have been on a lot of boards, was on the City of Columbia Planning Commission for 7 years, and every single time that Historic Columbia came and presented to the Planning Commission, I was impressed. I was impressed with what they were doing, I was impressed with how they were doing it, I was impressed with the collaboration that they had with the City of Columbia, and I was determined that when I was done with my term on Planning Commission, I would try to get on the board, and I am happy to be here and happy to contribute in this way. It's an important and meaningful organization for the quality of life in the City of Columbia. That being said, I will now attend to my notes. As you know, Historic Columbia's mission is to support and protect the historical and cultural heritage of Columbia and Richland County through advocacy, education, and preservation. To meet our strategic plan goals, we really work very hard, and we rely very much on our partnerships in the community, and particularly they range from contractual partnerships that we have with the City of Columbia and also with the county. Those are very important ones. And we are allowed the privilege of managing 5 historic houses and gardens. We also have award-winning partnerships with the Jewish community that to date has succeeded in collecting 41 oral histories and developing a 43-site web-based tour of Jewish sites in the city center. We're very proud of that. While these community-based partnerships are extremely important to us, it's also important to understand that really the key and the basis, the column that supports us, is our membership. And we have had tremendous growth over the last couple of years in terms of the number of people who attend our events. People love what we do. They come to our events, we have house tours, we have parties in the garden, people come to our events and they really enjoy that. But one thing that has not kept pace with that are our membership numbers. So we have been very successful in having people come to those events, but not everyone is joining. And that is something that we continue to work on and continues to be a growth area for us. So I guess the thing that is important to understand is that we're really asking for your help in two ways. One of the important things is we would ask you, I'm hoping that everyone here is a member. If you're not, please join. And additionally, please encourage someone else you know to join. If you are here, you're taking the time out of your day to commit to being somewhere and you're clearly committed to this organization. I would encourage you to get someone else to join. They will also be committed. If people understand what we do, they tend to be very engaged and want to support this organization. But that's one of the ways that we can do it, is for you to ask someone you know to do that. Additionally, if you are a member, you can always bump up to the next level. So we are currently in the process of working on the website, and we are changing some of the, just the pages in terms of having them be a little easier to use. But it's still very accessible, and anyone here can go in and raise their level of membership. So you can go from a family membership to a Palladium Society, you can Woodrow Wilson level. There are lots of levels that you can do, and I would encourage you, again, to ask a friend to join, and then also look at increasing your level if you're able to do that. Membership is an important part of what sustains us on an ongoing basis. I think that's it. I just want to thank you very much for your support. Thank you.
Grace Salter has graciously agreed to fill in for Jenna Stevens and report on the Historic Columbia Advisory Council. Grace?
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Salter. I serve as the Vice President for Palladium Society, and unfortunately Carol Hayward couldn't be with us for the meeting, so I will give the report on his behalf. 18 years ago, a small group of Historic Columbia members established the Palladium Society to engage young professionals in the organization. The affiliate membership program that got its start hosting small happy hour gatherings and historic tours has grown to host two of the most successful and entertaining events on Historic Columbia's annual calendar. One of which we'd love to have you join us for after tonight's meeting. This has been a great year for the Palladium Society. We hosted two major events, the silent auction and the chili cook-off. And together, these events netted close to $20,000 for Historic Columbia. In its sixth season, Renovation Radio, which allows us to host small gatherings in newly renovated homes and businesses, has consistently sold out. We actively recruit and engage new members, finishing last fiscal year with 225, meaning that 20% of all Historic Columbia members opted into Palladium. Entering 2018, we welcomed two new board members to Palladium, Jamie Campbell and Rebecca McCormack. If you would please stand. So welcome, ladies. We're very excited to have you a part. Tonight, following the meeting, I invite you to join us to the center lawn at the Robert Mills for the annual silent auction. If you don't have your tickets yet, bring your program and you can get the pre-sale price, $25 for Palladium members and $35 for Historic Columbia members. And if you're not a TPS member, I invite you to consider adding on the $15 and all the benefits that it brings. So if you now please excuse us, the Palladium members will exit so we can finish our setup. And we look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
I'm going to talk to you all about my broom in a minute. But first, I'm Catherine Hopkins. I'm on the Board of Trustees. And I'm the liaison with the Historic Columbia Gardens Committee. I'm excited to be here tonight to share with you the great success of the now 10-year-old Historic Garden Restoration Project. When Historic Columbia initiated this effort in 2006, the organization knew that the goal to establish period-appropriate gardens at 6 historic houses would really be a monumental task. In order to succeed, we needed people around the table who possessed a variety of talents. And from the get-go, we were able to build a steering committee with members who know plants and landscape design, who have connections to the horticulture community, and who are willing and eager to get their hands dirty, and who are willing to make lead gifts to fund the grand plans. There are many current and past members of the steering committee present, and I'd like anybody who is a member of the steering committee, past or present, to please stand. Come on.
As in the garden restoration?
Yes.
All of us. All of us.
Steering committee? Well, we have several names. Tonight I want to highlight those who've made consistent gifts of time and resources to the project. Since 2006, Hannah Rogers has been a member of the Garden Steering Committee. At the time, she was on the board of Columbia Green and was a key advocate in the organization's decision to make a major gift, multi-year gift of $75,000 to allow us to install the first garden at the Siebel's house that same year. Being able to announce the plan and immediately install an extraordinary garden gave the garden restoration project the exposure and credibility that Historic Columbia needed to build broad excitement and support. In 2010, Hannah and Ron worked with staff to plan and implement a garden that would connect this building, the Robert Mills Carriage House, to the museum shop. My mother's garden, dedicated to honor Hannah's mother, proved not only the link that was needed between the two buildings, but served as the perfect enhancement to Historic Columbia's rental program, creating an intimate space for small gatherings, as you all will find out shortly. This year, Hannah and Ron have made yet another contribution to upgrade the plantings and the signage in this elegant space. An advisor, donor, and promoter of the Gardens of Historic Columbia, please join me in thanking Hannah and Ron. This is, I've been told to speak into the
See what it's like. It's nice.
Also engaged from the first conversations about the garden project was the Columbia Garden Club. Before initiating the effort, Robin remembers being visited in 2004 by Columbia Garden Club members Mary Belser and Jane Suggs, who were interested in seeing the failing gardens at Woodrow Wilson, which the club had supported for many years, revived. When the Garden Steering Committee was established in 2006, Mary agreed to serve. 2 years later, the Columbia Garden Club Foundation made a $100,000 commitment over a 5-year period to rehabilitate the Woodrow Wilson Gardens. In 2010, Jamie Harpootlian joined the Historic Columbia Board and the Garden Committee and continued to advocate for the Garden Club's support and engagement. Once the Woodrow Wilson Gardens were completed in 2013, the Columbia Garden Club provided support for projects in 2016 at the Robert Mills House, the new garden surrounding the Henderson Street parking. And this year, additional improvements were made at Woodrow Wilson. Over the last 10 years, the Columbia Garden Club Foundation has contributed over $125,000 towards the garden restoration project, thanks to the leadership and members who have embraced and helped guide the vision of this effort. Jamie Harpootlian is the current president of Columbia Garden Club. Mary is here also. And any other representatives from the club, would you please stand so we can share our appreciation. From the outset of this initiative, but like the Columbia Garden Club long before, the Palmetto Garden Club has been invested in landscape preservation and restoration at Historic Columbia. Club leaders like Jenny Reynolds and Eleanor Pope were actively involved in the charrettes led by Jim Cochran. The first gift from the club came in 2007, when the garden restoration project was initiated. Over 10 years, club members took an active role as volunteers on the steering committee and advocates for the project. Committee members include 2007, and still going, Susan Boyd, 2010, Beth Kibler, in 2014, Ann Foster and Margaret Garner. The club dedicated funds from their annual Holiday Green Resale, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, to the Start Columbia Gardens, which have over 10 years provided $112,000 for the project. With the long-standing association at Hampton Preston site, members of the Palmetto Garden Club have provided support at every turn for this unique garden rehabilitation. From advice to awareness to hands-on gardening to fundraising, it is impossible to imagine the success of this effort without their engagement and support. Beth Kibler, current Palmetto Garden Club president, is here. Beth, would you please stand along with any other garden club members who are here? While Palmetto Garden Club collectively has been a key partner in the garden restoration project, there is one club member whose involvement has been transformational. As noted earlier, Susan Boyd joined the steering committee in 2007. She was and continues to be an active member who never hesitates to share her thoughts and suggestions. Excited by early progress and potential, particularly at Hampton Preston, Susan would talk with friends about the project and more often than not bring them on field trips to the sites. At meetings, she would report that people in Columbia do not know about the gardens and that we need to focus not just on building beautiful gardens, but finding ways to raise awareness and engage the public. Following the installation of the front garden at Hampton Preston, Susan wanted to ensure that the entrance to the property was as welcoming and as beautiful as the gardens themselves. She did so by providing matching funds for a grant to restore the historic entrance gates and front wall. As the front section of the gardens began to mature and more features like the gazebo were installed in the fall of 2016, Susan encouraged her nephew, George Bailey, to stop by the site to see what was going on. He was impressed and subsequently contacted Robin and encouraged her to submit a funding request to the Donald and Susan Boyd Foundation. In December 2016, the Boyd Foundation approved a request for $370,000 to complete Phase 2, focusing on the rear grounds of the gardens. This is the largest private gift in historic Columbia's 56-year history and has indeed served as the transformational one. Staff moved quickly to uncover and reinstall pathways, install irrigation and foundational plantings. The site is indeed beginning to resemble its 1850s form. It is a young garden at this point, but with major plant installations this spring, residents and visitors will be treated to a publicly accessible landscape unlike any other in the region. And while Susan was only one of the many decision makers around the table at that December grants meeting, it is her decade-long engagement and advocacy that provided the support needed to approve the request. Please join me in thanking Susan for ensuring that Historic Columbia realizes the vision of this unique site.
This is my husband's foundation, and part of it is the beautification of Columbia. And then George Bailey is head of foundation now, and so that is why we decided that it'd be nice to get going. And also, I was scared I'd be dead before they finished. And I want to tell you one other thing. The gazebo, you've got to go look at it. If you haven't seen it, you need to go, you won't be able to find it. It's so beautifully done, and I think Peter Pan lives in it. And it's charming. If you haven't seen it, we didn't have anything to do with that, but it is gorgeous. So take your time and go over there and walk, and when you find it, you will just think it's great.
highlighting these groups and individuals reveals the potential for nonprofit organizations. When the organization creates a plan with the community involvement, coalesces a team of working volunteers, employs a staff that buys into the vision and stays true to the strategic goals, and has a dynamic director, transformational things take place. As members and supporters of Historic Columbia, you also have a role to play in this success, whether through your gifts to the annual fund project, attending events in the gardens, bringing your children and grandchildren for a picnic on the grounds, which I do regularly when mine are in town, attending an event and buying holiday greenery, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. You become part of the transformation, not just of Historic Columbia, but of Columbia and Richland County, and this is where I am so passionate. Together, we all safeguard historic houses and 14 acres of green space. I lived in New York, y'all. Without green space, a city is bereft. We will have garden treasures to ensure a vibrant future for our city, and we want to continue to be actively engaged in this process, and we thank you all for your membership and involvement. Now, I'm going to put on another hat. Palmetto Garden Club donates the funds that we raise every year at our Christmas greenery sale. But because everything is made to order, all fresh greenery, it has to be ordered by October the 26th, which makes me a little crazy every year. But I'm always excited at the beginning of December. This year, the pickup day, everything is made fresh and delivered on the day of the greenery sale. We get the wreaths, I think, the day before. But we have beautiful poinsettias, beautiful greenery, garlands, green table decorations. We also have our favorite gardening tools. This is mine. This broom sweeps wet leaves, wet pine straw. It swept out my basement after the flood, and I am on my second round. I absolutely adore it. It's better than any broom or rake I've ever owned. And I'm showing you my other favorite garden tool, which my husband says I look a little brutal when I go out. But this is my favorite weeding and digging tool. I find it much better and easier to use than a shovel. We have a table outside. You may go to the Historic Columbia website. We have cards in everybody's seat with our address in case that's easier. But if you go to the Historic Columbia website, you will see a link to our website. You go there, you can order wreaths of many different sizes, garlands, all kinds of wonderful garden tools. So I would appreciate it if you all would. And it's your participation in this greenery sale that helps us give money back to Historic Columbia.
Special thanks to Hannah, Jamie, Mary, Beth, Susan, and George for all they do to help Historic Columbia realize its potential. Next, we'll have Kim Jameson, who will give us a report from the nominating committee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kim Jameson. I serve on the Board of Trustees for Historic Columbia. I, too, am standing in for a fellow colleague. I'm standing in for Jeff Payne. And I also have notes from Robin, so I'm just going to go straight into this. I'm standing in for Jeff Payne, who is the chair of Historic Columbia's nominations committee. We have one opening for an at-large seat on the Board of Trustees beginning in fiscal year 17-18. Tonight, I bring to the membership the following name for consideration: Doug Quackenbush. Doug is the principal in charge of Quackenbush Architects and Planners, a firm he launched in 2004. He has long been a member and supporter of Historic Columbia at the personal and professional levels. Since 2009, he has served on Historic Columbia's Preservation Awards Committee, chairing it for the last 4 years. In 2016, Doug chaired the Architects Selection Committee for the Hampton Preston Mansion project and has been an important advisor throughout the process. He brings a deep and meaningful knowledge for our community, coupled with an appreciation for what Historic Columbia does and a vision for what we can do in the future. The nomination committee is delighted to offer this slate for the members' consideration. Thank you.
Recommendations coming from committee do not require a second, but is there any discussion from the voting members? All in favor of electing the slates signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. At this time, I'll hand the program over to our Executive Director, Robin Wales.
Thank y'all for being here. So I'm standing before you tonight on the cusp of my 16th year with Historic Columbia, and when I think about what this organization was like in 2002 when I arrived, it's pretty astounding to think of the way that it has changed over that 15, almost 16 years. And those changes are across the board. They're with the buildings, the interpretation and the care that we're able to take now of the physical structures and the gardens, to have grown really dramatically in community support and partnerships. And that's at every level. I think it's wonderful to kind of look through some photographs from 2002 and 2005 and see the shifts that we've made as an organization. And many of you have been with us through that entire time, and we certainly appreciate your commitment and belief that we can do what we say that we can. So I'm not going to go into the whole 15 years of Historic Columbia. I'm just going to look at the last year, so don't worry. I know that there's wine to be had, and I'm not going to stand in the way of that. So we're going to look just at 2016, 17, and we're going to do that looking at three lenses of success, I think, over the last year. The first is income, and we'll look at both contributed support and earned support. The second is participation, and the third is recognition. And as you'll note in the financial statement that's in your annual report that you have, we did finish this year in the black. Beth's husband, Bud Kibler, is a past president for Historic Columbia, and he was really invested in ensuring that our books were good and left us in good stead. We continue to look to Bud for some of that inspiration today. So I'm going to highlight two important wins for us this year. And the first is with Midlands Gives. This is a program that is facilitated by the Central Carolina Community Foundation, and their goal is to encourage philanthropy throughout the Midlands. Historic Columbia realized really amazing success on a number of levels with Midlands Gives this year. We had a total income of $18,534. And keep in mind, this is one day of giving. We exceeded our previous record by over $4,000, and our goal for that year by over $8,000. We had a total number of unique donations at 243, of which 86 were new to Midlands Gives, and that exceeded our previous high numbers by 77. Over 100 donations were made during the power hour, so if you gave between 7 and 8 a.m., thanks. We got an extra $1,000 for winning the power hour, and that's the fourth year in a row that we have won the power hour. We're getting kind of greedy with that. So if you get a text from me at 7:42, like Issa did, make your gift. We finished second on the leaderboard out of 337 nonprofits who are participating in this event. And that's, again, the fourth year that Midlands Gives has been doing this, that we finished in the top 10. Second is the highest that we've ever finished. And then in addition, we had 100% support from our Board of Trustees, 100% from our Palladium Board, as well as 100% from our Development Committee. So really, the investment of those who are already involved in the organization led to that success. It was a very well-organized, stellar representation of the support of Historic Columbia working together towards this common goal and realizing success. I'm going to highlight some of the staff who were intimately involved in this. Wendy Sprack and Lauren Majowski, they're our development team. They led the charge. Our marketing team, Brian Harmon and Anna Kate Twitty, very creatively took the campaign challenge and developed this really wonderful series of videos and Facebook posts and live features and all sorts of things that I don't really understand. And that day we had all sorts of views and likes and record numbers of engagement on social media, likely in part because our own History Everyman, John Shearer, was the star of most of the videos that day. He roamed the city talking about historic places and the way that Historic Columbia has made it possible for many of these places to stand today. The second real win I think we've had this year is with the Hampton Preston Gardens. And as Catherine has already detailed, in the decade since adopting the Cultural Landscape Master Plan, Historic Columbia has made great strides in establishing and maintaining dynamic landscapes at each of the sites. The gift, as Catherine mentioned, from the Boyd Foundation for HP, indeed has been transformational. In this instance, we have proof that when resources are coupled with a committed and engaged staff, we can accomplish great things. And Evan Clements, Keith Mearns, and Dave Roof have worked tirelessly over the past year with a wonderful crew of volunteers to ensure that the contributed funds are properly and effectively put to work to recreate what we know will be, once again, a renowned garden in the Southeast. I should be asking y'all to stand up or wave your hand when I call your staff name. Keith and Evan are here. This is our wonderful grounds staff. Wendy's standing in the back. She's our development. Everybody knows John. And Brian, who worked on Midlands Gifts and everything else that we do from a marketing perspective. Anna Kate just had a baby, so she's not with us tonight. We tried. So the second way that we're looking at measuring success this year is through participation. In 2016-17, Historic Columbia staff embraced the strategic goal that Gina mentioned to do fewer things better. So we reduced event days from 134 to 87. And we have the following results. Despite having fewer total programs, attendance increased by 4,200 people over the previous fiscal year. Despite a decrease in programs and events, marketing engagement increased across the board. Our website engagement increased by 17%, Instagram by 66%, and overall media coverage by 179% over the previous year. Programs ranging from the time-tested cemetery tours and quarterly happy hour events to garden workshops and the ever-popular behind-the-scenes tours were consistently realizing capacity crowds. And this success can be attributed to an extremely creative staff that works well together. Our educators, led by James Quint, and Heather Bacon-Rogers. Our dynamic presenters, again, John, and Fielding. Breed is Fielding here? A really dogged determination by Wendy to secure new and exciting venues for activities, as well as a creative and dynamic marketing team that really knows how to get folks excited about what we're doing and get them to show up. Our student engagement was up this year by 15%. So in the fall and the spring, Celia Gallons and Jill founded, I know Celia's not here, Jill's not. We're on the road with traveling trunks more than on site with school groups. This is a great program, the Traveling Trunk Program. It's sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. We have 2 representatives tonight from Blue Cross. This allows staff to provide hands-on learning with engaging activities on local history topics. We follow state standards. We embrace STEAM. It's STEAM now. Is it STEAM or STEM? Both. STEAM. It used to be STEM. Now it's STEAM. The topics range from Reconstruction to the civil rights. And the program this past year reached 7,534 students in 52 schools across Richland and Lexington counties. And I'm sorry our elected officials left before I could give them those numbers, but y'all are all going to be calling them, right, at 10. So our success demands your participation as well. Historic Columbia relies on the active engagement of over 200 volunteers to keep the organization running, from the garden crew that meets twice a week to the docents who lead our tours of the house museums 4 days a week, to board members who oversee governance and policy. While the value of your time is quantifiable, 3,333 hours valued at $80,500. It's really impossible to measure what you give to the organization. Betsy Kleinfelder. There's Betsy. Betsy does an excellent job working with all volunteers to help them find the right fit within the organization and keeping them engaged throughout the year. And I would love for I know many of you are volunteers with the organization in a lot of different ways. I have in the front row one of our volunteers who was a docent with Historic Columbia for 33 years. Effie Phillips is here. I wish that she had stayed for 2 more years. That's why I always say. And Ann Fogford, is Ann still here?
Yes.
Ann was our longtime volunteer coordinator with Historic Columbia. We're glad to have her. So the final measure of success that I want to touch on is recognition. So this year, Historic Columbia was recognized with the South Carolina State Historic Preservation Award for Heritage Tourism, as well as the Project Award for the Confederation of State and Local Histories for the Columbia Jewish Heritage Initiative. This is a project that is led by Catherine Allen, who is in Hawaii. We pay her too much. She leads this collaboration through which we recorded over 40 oral histories, collected 300 photographs, expanded the guided and web-based tours of Jewish sites, and installed and dedicated 3 historic markers. This year, Brian Harmon also put his creative talents toward the development of a website and blog that's called Kugels and Collards, and explores Southern Jewish foodways. It's a really awesome site. I encourage you to go have a look at that. There's a band playing right now. I'm going to wrap it up quickly. In addition to the statewide accolades, Historic Columbia was recognized by the National Council on Public History with an award for an outstanding public history project for the interpretive upgrades to the Man Simon site, led by John and James. A new exhibit content was developed in alignment with feedback that we got from 15-16 listening sessions, findings from 6 years of archaeological investigation and new research that was conducted on the family and the site itself. Shifting to an exhibit model more closely aligned with Wilson allows Historic Columbia to offer more thorough and methodical exploration of the Mann, Jackson, and Simons family over the 140 years that they were associated with the site. Another measure of recognition comes when others seek you out as a community partner. Among the many collaborative efforts the organization takes on, the greatest potential for economic and community impact is evident with our preservation initiatives, which this year took the form of workshops that were hands-on, as well as the acceptance of a new facade easement, bringing the number of buildings under our review to 11. Sean Stucker. Pictured here. Sean does an extraordinary job managing this program, conducting really thorough baseline studies and annual reviews, and his work ensures that Historic Columbia has a direct hand in the protection of historic places in Columbia, and those easements are in perpetuity. So overall, Historic Columbia performed really well in 2016-17, thanks to support from all corners. But as I hope has been evident in this presentation, it is only possible thanks to the extraordinary commitment of the Historic Columbia staff. In addition to those that I have mentioned already, I mentioned Fielding, but I'm going to mention him again because Fielding continues to cultivate new collections and incorporate those into the work that we do at our many sites in dynamic ways, and one of those will be open tonight. So as you're enjoying your food and drink outside in my mother's garden, please take a minute to go through the museum shop where Mitch, Journey, he will help you buy something before you go into the Robert Mills site and visit with the collections team and Fielding at Robert Mills. Debbie Giles is our admin finance coordinator. Debbie makes sure that we keep in good graces with our auditor and our finance committee. Did Lois come inside? Lois Carlisle, bless her heart, she works with me every day. She works really hard to lend a hand to anybody who needs it here on staff. And since Anna Kate has been on maternity leave, Lois has been assisting with marketing. So she writes those articles that you see in the Columbia Star on a weekly basis, and the annual report that you have in front of you. Lois is responsible for that this year. Jeff is not here, but Jeff does everything that nobody else will do at Historic Columbia. And Caroline Mobley and Brittany Buckner, who are relatively new to the staff, are doing great work both in marketing and rentals for the organization. So I just want you to know that we do a lot at Historic Columbia, but we don't do it in a vacuum. We do it with a really incredible team of staff who is committed to this organization and committed to making Columbia a better place. So we still have a lot of work to do. We're going to celebrate tonight. Next year, I look forward to reporting on what happened at the Hampton Preston Mansion, where we got $1 million investment from Richland County. They own the property, so the building is going to go through a complete rehabilitation, interpretive shifts, and then, as you know, the gardens will be totally transformed again in the next month. Greg Pierce, I don't think that Greg is here, but Greg has been our champion, our liaison. We wouldn't be where we are without Greg Pierce's support. So I just want to close by saying thank you as members of Historic Columbia for supporting what we do and providing the resources that we need to move forward. And I'm going to let Gina stand in the way of the wine from here.
Great presentation, but Historic Columbia would not be so successful if it wasn't for this woman, who is just incredible every day, day in and day out. And I'd like all of us to give her some support.